Welcome to QUT News.
Hello.
Australia's major political parties have received a pre-election boost with support for One Nation waning. Prime Minister Scott Morrison and opposition leader Bill Shorten are now trying to bolster support in Victoria.
The Prime Minister arrived in Deakin ready to get his hands dirty. New polling shows Scott Morrison remains in the driver's seat as preferred PM.
He's in it, look out!
While his opponent, Bill Shorten, hit the Westgate Tunnel construction site to win over workers.
Remember, the Labor Party thinks that you should keep your penalty rates.
Both their parties now share 39% of primary votes, and that's because One Nation has slumped to 4%, triggered by Pauline Hanson's gun lobby controversy. With preferences though, Labor still leads with 52% to the Coalition's 48%.
It's pretty clear. If you can't manage money as the Labor Party can't, then you can't run the country.
Meanwhile, United Australia's Clive Palmer has finally promised to pay back workers after his nickel plant collapsed.
Townsville's certainly been doing it tough and difficult since the floods, and we want to look forward rather than backwards.
A sentiment shared by all sides as the election draws nearer. Shelley Cheng, QUT News.
Queenslanders are facing two distinct health issues this year. Flu and measles outbreaks are already worrying doctors.
With winter fast approaching, Australians are bunkering down for a nasty flu season. But we're also facing an outbreak of measles. There have already been 12 cases this year compared to 14 for the whole of last year.
This serves as a timely reminder for everyone to check their vaccination status, make sure they've had 2 documented doses of measles, mumps, rubella.
There is currently no effective treatment for measles, and for some, it can be deadly.
And a lot of people might get vaccinated when they are kids. So a lot of the time we need a booster shot to keep up the immunity level.
And the doctor says that not vaccinating could put others in danger.
If people don't get vaccinated, they are not protected. And if they are not protected, they spread.
And they say don't forget the flu shot as well.
Authorities say the need for vaccination is more important now than ever. Statistics show the number of confirmed cases has tripled. So far, 30,000 people have been diagnosed this year alone.
The elderly, pregnant women and those chronically ill are advised to get a vaccination now. And it's free. Laura Lavelle, QUT News.
Fire investigators are trying to establish the cause of a blaze in a Crestmead home. They suspect arson.
Residents of the quiet Logan Street woken in the middle of the night by a terrifying inferno. This footage filmed by a neighbour. Flames reaching up to 4 stories high soon engulfed the Hikari Street address. The ferocity causing the home's top story to collapse.
The fire was completely involved downstairs and upstairs. Our initial actions were to protect this buildings on either side.
Despite that, windows on a neighbouring property blew in and the heat melted blinds. Firefighters were still working 6 hours later to extinguish the flames. The owner of the gutted home was not on the premises at the time. His adult children also lived there.
There was fear that there were 2 persons unaccounted for, but they have since been accounted for, and there's been no injuries involved in this incident.
An investigation is underway to determine whether or not the fire was deliberately lit, with the homeowner telling authorities he'd received a number of threats against him in recent weeks. The property has been declared a crime scene. Dom Fay, QUT News.
A 28-year-old man is still fighting for life after a shooting outside a Melbourne nightclub. The family of another man killed in the drive-by attack are in mourning as the hunt for the shooters continues.
To Aaron Khalid Osmani's family, he was a gentle giant, remembering the 37-year-old as an absolute gentleman, who was gunned down outside the Love Machine Club, simply doing his job.
Gunshot wounds from fairly sort of close proximity, so, horrific injuries.
Osmani died in hospital from those injuries. His colleague, a fellow bodyguard, is still in a critical condition. A bystander from the packed nightclub described those terrifying split seconds early on Sunday morning.
We heard 3 gunshots and a person in the passenger seat with a mask on.
We heard people screaming and shouting and then the car drove off. It sped away into a street.
It's believed 2 men torched the stolen black Porsche from the shootings outside Melbourne City before fleeing the scene on foot. Police believe the attack was targeted, but the victims were random. So far, no arrests have been made, with investigators asking anyone with dashcam footage to come forward, as Osmani's family plan his funeral. A GoFundMe page has been set up to support them. Hannah Donnelly, QUT News.
36 journalists and media groups facing charges over the George Pell trial have asked for more time to defend the contempt proceedings. They are accused of breaching a suppression order on Cardinal Pell's conviction before it was lifted and face massive fines. A lawyer representing many of them described the case as unprecedented in Australia.
The traditional Easter road blitz is just around the corner. Police warn they will show no mercy to those speeding and urge them to watch a new dashcam initiative.
Queensland has launched a world-first campaign with the help of neuroscientist Dr. Lucia Kelleher in a bid to tackle the serious issue of speeding.
Drive smarter, not faster.
I think it's a great campaign, and we've got to get people to understand, you know, even small K above the limit can be really dangerous.
The government wants drivers to watch real-life situations on a departmental website. They hope it will encourage them to slow down.
So we're using real people in real scenarios just to show, you know, how the situation can occur so people can relate to it.
The Transport Minister is adamant there is no such thing as safe speeding and wants to get that message out.
We want Easter to be a joyous, wonderful, memorable Easter, not one that, you know, is a tragedy that people will never forget for all the wrong reasons.
Queenslanders are warned that the crackdown over Easter 2019 will be one of the toughest ever.
Police will be out in force. Police will be enforcing the road rules, and the Commissioner makes no apologies for issuing infringements to people who don't follow the road rules. They're there for a reason, and that reason is to ensure people drive safely on our roads.
Over last year's Easter long weekend, Queensland roads saw 4 fatal crashes and 102 people hospitalised. It's hoped that these driving experiments will help drivers break their autopilot mode, focusing instead on their speed. Richard O'Brien, QUT News.
With more people turning away from meat and animal products, supermarkets are beginning to change some staples. This Easter, they're offering new styles of chocolate.
Woolworths, Coles, Aldi and other supermarkets around Australia are offering a new take on the traditional chocolate Easter egg. The growing popularity of veganism means this Easter, consumers are demanding more dairy-free treats.
I would definitely say since I started here 5 years ago, there's been a huge increase. We've had a lot of people coming in asking for them.
While mass-produced traditional eggs are still the favourite, some chocolate fans are open to trying the healthier alternative.
I'll try it. Yeah, I'll give anything a go.
If it tastes like chocolate, who cares, really?
I would consider it, maybe, yeah. Like if it's a healthier option for kids.
Others are not so convinced.
I wouldn't even consider buying a non-dairy Easter egg.
But there is a small controversy. Is dairy-free chocolate really chocolate?
I do believe they are still chocolate because they've got that percentage of cocoa in it, but when you think about like the traditional Easter egg, it definitely strays away.
For those with allergies and dietary requirements though, it means a more inclusive Easter break.
I think it's great that those options are available, but I probably don't really look at them myself, but glad they're available for other people.
There are now options to accommodate all chocolate lovers this Easter. And remember, only 6 sleeps until the Easter Bunny arrives. Georgie Hewson, QUT News.
Looking again at our main story. And the major political parties have been boosted by a fall in support for One Nation.
And still to come, Maroon great Greg Inglis hangs up the boots.
Yet another candidate has entered the US presidential race. The mayor of South Bend, Indiana, is now seeking the Democrats' nomination.
He went from obscure Midwestern politician to top-tier contender in a matter of weeks. Peter Buttigieg officially launched his bid for the 2020 Democratic nomination on Sunday, speaking about the greater future of America.
That's why this time it's not just about winning an election.
It's about winning an era.
Buttigieg is the first openly gay candidate and would become the country's youngest ever president, earning the 38-year-old support amongst progressives in the Democratic base. With 17 Democrats vying for the nomination, early polls place him behind Democratic veterans Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders.
So with hope in our hearts and with fire in our bellies, let's get to work and let's make history. Thank you.
A fresh face in the race for the Oval Office. Liam LeGrandi, QUT News.
3 people have died in a horrific plane crash in Nepal. The aircraft collided with a parked helicopter while taking off from an airport in northeast Kathmandu. The plane's co-pilot and 2 police officers standing near the helicopter were killed on impact. Another 4 people were injured and airlifted to the hospital for treatment.
The aircraft swung to the right and hit Manang Air helicopter at the helicopter parking area. There were no passengers in the aircraft, only 3 crew were on board.
Authorities are investigating but say the cause of the crash is still unknown.
Pope Francis has told thousands of followers that the church needs to be humble. He was leading the traditional Palm Sunday gathering in St. Peter's Square.
Tens of thousands of people wave palm and olive branches as the Holy Father passed them. Following Gospel readings, Pope Francis urged the masses to resist temptation.
Triumphalism lives off gestures and words that are not forged in the crucible of the cross. It grows by looking across at others and constantly judging them inferior, wanting failures.
Palm Sunday marks the start of a series of commemorations leading to Easter Sunday, the most important day on the Christian calendar. In the holiest of cities, worshippers were in full voice. Celebrating the day, Catholics believe Jesus rode into Jerusalem. While in Belarus, they carried a large wooden cross to a sacred hill.
I see people throughout the year who come here just to pray to God for help. This is a holy place.
The beginning of a biblical week, uniting Catholics around the world. Liam LeGrandi, QUT News.
The United Nations is renewing efforts to find a political settlement to Syria's 8-year-long war. A UN envoy met with the country's foreign minister with the aim of unifying Syria after a war that has claimed hundreds of thousands of lives.
It's fair to say that we are now addressing all the issues, so all the issues are at the table.
They also discussed political reforms, including the formation of a constitutional committee as quickly as possible. Protesters in Sudan have demanded the immediate handover of power to a civilian government following last week's revolution. The North African nation now faces its hardest test yet to find peace and stability.
As Sudanese protesters marched through the streets, their passion was palpable. The Sudanese Professionals Association is calling for a transitional council which will be protected by the armed force, giving power back to the people. After 30 years ruling the country, autocrat President Bashir was overthrown in a military coup last week. Thousands of protesters continue to stage a sit-in outside the defense ministry.
We still stay because the revolution not yet. We are not giving up until now.
They fear a repeat of Egypt's uprising in 2011.
We have an example like Egypt. 8 years ago, they pushed them out of Tahrir Square. Until today, no one is allowed in Tahrir Square.
The protests came as the deputy leader of Sudan's military council met with US diplomats. They discussed the expected role the military council may play in their country's future.
We want actions, we don't want statements. We want a man to give us pictures of those who violated our lives for all those years inside prison.
After months of protests and with the sit-in now entering its 10th day, a resolution to tensions still appears a long way down the road. Beatrice Alonso, QUT News.
Now some sport. And US golfer Tiger Woods has made a sensational comeback, taking out the 2019 Masters. It's his first title in 11 years. Meanwhile, in Rugby League, one of the greats has retired.
For club, Queensland and country, for more than a decade, his mere presence sent opponents into a panic. But today, Greg Inglis said goodbye to a game he's given so much to.
30 years old now, and my body's hasn't given up on me, but I think it's, like I said, I think it's time for me, and it's the right decision for myself.
A serious shoulder injury cutting short the career of a Queensland great. The South Sydney captain calling it quits. 2 years shy of his planned retirement. For the Maroons, he was a talisman. 18 tries in 32 appearances, the greatest try scorer in the state's history, and at times, simply unstoppable.
As I say, he's a once-in-a-generation player. So we've got to find someone that can fill that jersey and fill it to the best of their ability.
While GI's immediate future remains with the Rabbitohs as a club ambassador. In the AFL, the Suns continue to rise. Another thriller at Carrara on Sunday afternoon saw the young side edge Carlton by 2 points.
It leaves us frustrated and really determined, and also hurting. Probably the summary of the three main emotions right now.
Dom Fay, QUT News.
The weather details are next with Alex Brewster.
And bustling Brazilians in a crazy race.
Hello, time to take a look at the weather. It was slightly overcast today, but Brisbane still got to 26. It was very pleasant elsewhere across the southeast. The Gold and Sunny Coast hovered in the mid-20s, while Ipswich was the top, making it into 27. Looking interstate tomorrow, a shower or two for Sydney, a crisp start and 23 for Canberra, mostly sunny in Melbourne and Hobart, while over in the west, a shower or two for Perth, and sunny and 33 for Darwin. Around Queensland tomorrow, possible showers for the coastal centres from Cairns right down to Bundaberg, and 32 predicted for Longreach and Mount Isa. Out on Moreton Bay, winds will be 10 to 15 knots from the south to southwest, with seas below 1 metre, and the sun will rise just after 6 o'clock. Looking at the Golden Sunshine Coast tomorrow, a shower or two predicted and a top of 27. The 3-day outlook for Brisbane now, a possible shower and 27 tomorrow, and a shower or two predicted for later in the week. That's the weather for now. Back to you, Caitlin.
Before we go, a story from Brazil. Brazilians are known for their colourful and fun attitude to life, and they've shown it again with a crazy billy cart race through the streets of Sao Paulo.
At the top of a steep slope in Sao Paulo, gravity was all they needed. Creatively designed motorless cars took part in the annual Crazy Race. Picking up the speed was the easy part. Controlling the big billy carts proved a lot harder. Participants put in plenty of work for this moment.
It was really hard to build this car. Nights and days working on it, some 40 days. My hand is all cut up.
All to make their masterpieces. Only the top 70 designs were picked. Some as unpredictable as the course they were built for. One competitor's inflatable inspiration came from a dip in the pool.
The construction was really cool. Everything worked out, and to come here and go down was sensational.
That thrill driven forward by the hundreds of fans who lined the hill. Beatrice Alonso, QUT News.
That brings you up to date with QUT News. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.